The unbreakable defense. The Varaxian Empire's flagship, Worldbreaker, drifted silently at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, its massive obsidian hull absorbing the light from the nearby star. At 20 kilometers long, the dreadnought was less a spaceship and more a mobile fortress, housing millions of Varaxian soldiers and enough weaponry to reduce entire continents to slag. On the command bridge, High Admiral Krelvex watched the holographic display of their latest target with 6 cold, calculating eyes. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the dim purple lighting as he gestured with clawed appendages toward the third planet, Proxima Nova, the last significant human colony outside their protected Sol system. Krelvex announced to his officers, "These mammals have evaded our grasp for too long. Their stubborn resistance ends today." The Varaxians had emerged from the dark reaches of the galaxy 60 years ago, bringing with them technology centuries beyond what the United Galactic Community possessed. Their quantum-entangled weapons systems could bypass any known shielding. Their hulls, constructed from artificially grown crystalline alloys, could withstand direct antimatter strikes. In the 6 decades since their arrival, they had subjugated 18 species and annexed over 300 star systems. No military force had ever survived direct confrontation with a Varaxian battle group. Most civilizations surrendered immediately upon their arrival. The few that resisted were made examples of, their major cities reduced to craters, their populations enslaved in mineral extraction facilities to fuel the ever-expanding empire. "Deploy the Vanguard," Krelvex ordered. "Standard subjugation protocol. Target their defensive installations first, then government centers. Leave their industrial zones intact. We'll need their manufacturing capacity." On Proxima Nova, the capital city of New Armstrong was in chaos. Emergency sirens wailed as civilians rushed to underground shelters. The Terran Defense Force had detected the Varaxian Armada 3 days ago, but even with advance warning, their options were limited. Evacuation ships were already departing, carrying as many people as possible back toward Earth, though many would be caught by Varaxian interceptors. In the planetary defense headquarters beneath Mount Olympus, Commander Sarah Chen stared at tactical displays with grim determination. At 38, she had spent her entire adult life in the military, rising quickly through the ranks during humanity's desperate arms race against the Varaxian threat. "Status report on the Dauntless," she demanded. Lieutenant Park looked up from his console. "Final systems check complete, Commander. All experimental systems are online, but engineering emphasizes they remain untested in actual combat conditions." Chen nodded. The TDF Dauntless represented humanity's last, best hope, a prototype battleship built in secret over the past decade. Incorporating theoretical technologies based on intensive study of salvaged Varaxian tech, it wasn't as large as a Varaxian dreadnought, only 2 kilometers long, but it carried humanity's most advanced weapon systems and defensive measures. Most importantly, it housed the experimental Mobius shield generator, which scientists believe might counteract Varaxian quantum weaponry through application of 11-dimensional mathematics and exotic matter manipulation. In theory, at least. "The colony's defense grid won't hold for more than an hour against their vanguard," said Colonel Rivera, the planetary defense coordinator. "If the Dauntless is going to make a difference, it needs to deploy now." Chen took a deep breath. "Then we deploy now. Notify the crew. I'll take command personally." Rivera looked surprised. "Commander, protocol dictates that you should evacuate with the civilian leadership tow." "Protocol means nothing if we lose this colony," Chen interrupted. "This is our only chance to test the Dauntless against actual Varaxian forces. If it fails, my place is with my people, not running." 30 minutes later, Chen stood on the bridge of the Dauntless as it broke from its concealed dock within Proxima Nova's largest moon. The ship hummed with energy as its prototype quantum fusion reactors powered up to full capacity. "Tactical, what's the status of the Varaxian Vanguard?" Chen asked. 6 cruiser-class vessels have entered orbit, Commander," responded the tactical officer. They've already destroyed our outer defense platforms and are preparing to target ground installations. The main fleet remains at the system's edge. Chen nodded. Perfect. They've committed only a fraction of their forces. Plot an intercept course to the lead cruiser. Power up the Mobius shield but keep our weapons systems dark. Let's see if our defenses work before we reveal our offensive capabilities. The Dauntless accelerated smoothly, its advanced gravitic propulsion system allowing it to reach the Varaxian cruisers within minutes without the telltale energy signature of conventional drives. On the Worldbreaker, a junior sensor officer approached High Admiral Krelvex with obvious trepidation. Exalted Admiral, we've detected an anomalous vessel approaching our vanguard. Configuration unknown, but the size suggests a capital ship. Krelvex turned his attention to the sensor readings. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated the humans had no capital ships in this system. Magnify. The holographic display zoomed in on the approaching vessel. Its sleek design was unlike the blocky utilitarian ships humans typically fielded. This vessel had an almost predatory appearance, with smooth lines and forward-swept wing structures housing what appeared to be weapons emplacements. Alert the vanguard, Krelvex ordered. Destroy that vessel. The lead Varaxian cruiser redirected its main quantum disruptor toward the approaching human ship. The weapon gathered energy, creating a visible distortion in space-time before releasing a concentrated beam that could shear through planetary crusts. On the Dauntless, Commander Chen gripped her command chair. Brace for impact. Mobius shield at maximum power. The beam struck the Dauntless and vanished into what appeared to be a localized spatial distortion surrounding the human vessel. On the bridge, stunned silence was broken by the defensive systems officer's incredulous report. Shield integrity at 94%. The Mobius field successfully redirected the majority of the energy into dimensional space. It works, Commander. It actually works. For the first time in 60 years, a Varaxian weapon had failed to destroy its target. Chen allowed herself a brief smile before returning to her professional demeanor. Now for Phase 2. Bring weapon systems online. Target their propulsion and weapons with the phase cannons. The Dauntless's main weapons were based on principles reverse-engineered from damaged Varaxian technology, modified with humanity's own innovations. The phase cannons didn't attempt to breach Varaxian hulls directly. Instead, they created momentary phase shifts in targeted systems, causing matter to briefly exist out of alignment with itself. When normal space-time reasserted, the resulting stress tore the affected systems apart from within. The Dauntless fired brilliant blue-white beams, lancing out to strike the Varaxian cruiser precisely at its main propulsion hub and weapon emplacements. The cruiser didn't explode dramatically. Instead, critical sections of its hull simply collapsed inward, as though crushed by invisible forces. High Admiral Krelvex watched in disbelief as the supposedly invincible cruiser drifted powerless, its main systems catastrophically failing. Impossible, he whispered, then louder. All Vanguard vessels, concentrate fire on the human ship. The remaining Varaxian cruisers reoriented toward the Dauntless, their quantum disruptors charging. But the human vessel moved with unexpected agility, executing maneuvers that seemed to briefly distort its very shape in space. They've adapted their shield technology into their propulsion system, Krelvex realized. They're creating localized space-time distortions to move. For the first time in his long military career, the High Admiral felt a cold sensation that took him moments to identify. Fear. On the Dauntless, Chen directed a precise, methodical attack. One by one, the Varaxian cruisers were disabled, their fearsome weapons rendered useless by the phase cannons, their communication systems disrupted to prevent them from coordinating effectively. Within 40 minutes, the entire Varaxian vanguard had been neutralized, with minimal damage to the Dauntless. Send a system-wide broadcast, Chen ordered. I want the Varaxian main fleet to hear this. She stood tall, her expression resolute as the communications officer signaled that they were transmitting. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force vessel Dauntless. For 60 years, the Varaxian Empire has terrorized this galaxy, believing yourselves invincible. Today, that illusion ends. Proxima Nova is under our protection. Your vanguard has been neutralized without a single human casualty. Withdraw your forces immediately, or your main fleet will face the same outcome. On the Worldbreaker, Krellvex received the transmission with mounting rage. No species had ever defeated Varaxian ships in direct combat, let alone issued demands afterward. The sheer audacity was inconceivable. "Prepare the main fleet for full deployment," he commanded. "I will crush this human resistance myself and hang their broken vessels in orbit as a warning to all who would dare defy the Empire." But as the transmission ended, a flicker of doubt crept into the High Admiral's mind. The humans had achieved the impossible once already. What other surprises might they have waiting? The counteroffensive. 3 days after the defeat of the Varaxian vanguard, Commander Chen stood in the war room of the Dauntless, addressing representatives from 5 previously subjugated species who had arrived in response to encrypted transmissions sent immediately after the victory. "The Varaxians are regrouping," Chen explained, gesturing to the tactical display showing the main fleet's position at the edge of the system. "Our intelligence suggests High Admiral Krellvex has requested reinforcements from neighboring sectors. When they attack again, it will be with overwhelming force." The reptilian Saurian ambassador, Scaris, clicked his tongue skeptically. One victory, impressive as it was, does not win a war. The Empire controls thousands of vessels. Your Dauntless, while remarkable, is just one ship. "Which is why we need your help," Chen replied. "Each of your species has suffered under Varaxian rule. Each has resistance movements that have been gathering intelligence, sabotaging operations where possible. What we need now is coordinated action." The insectoid Zakari representative, whose species had been the first to fall to the Varaxians, stepped forward on delicate limbs. "The humans have done what we thought impossible, proven the Varaxians can be defeated in direct combat. We will contribute our stealth vessels and expertise in Varaxian communication systems." One by one, the other representatives pledged support. The crystalline Lithans would provide advanced sensor technology. The gaseous Aetheri offered their expertise in nebular warfare tactics. The aquatic Marins committed their remaining ships, which excelled at hit-and-run attacks. "Together, we can do more than defend a single planet," Chen concluded. "We can begin the liberation of occupied territories." The coalition formed rapidly, vessels from each species converging on Proxima Nova under the coordination of the TDF. Meanwhile, the Dauntless underwent hurried modifications, integrating compatible technologies from the Allied species. The Dauntless's hull reconfigured, sections sliding apart to reveal what appeared to be a massive crystalline structure spanning the length of the ship. Energy from the quantum fusion reactors channeled into this structure, causing it to pulsate with increasing intensity. "Targeting the Worldbreaker and flanking dreadnoughts," announced the weapons officer. "Mobius enhanced phase cannon at full charge." The crystalline structure emitted a blinding light as the Dauntless fired its ultimate weapon, not a conventional beam, but a cascading series of phase shifts that propagated through space toward the Varaxian command ships. Where this cascade passed, space itself seemed to shudder. When it reached the Varaxian vessels, the effect was catastrophic. The phase shifts bypassed their crystalline hulls entirely, directly affecting the space occupied by their quantum reactors. Matter phased in and out of reality in microsecond intervals, creating compounding stress that no material could withstand. The Worldbreaker's midsection collapsed as though crushed by an invisible fist. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as systems failed catastrophically. The 2 flanking dreadnoughts suffered similar fates, their mighty hulls crumpling inward. On what remained of the Worldbreaker's bridge, Krellvex watched in horror as his seemingly invincible fleet was thrown into chaos. Without the coordinating signals from the command ships, the Varaxian battle doctrine fell apart. Vessels collided in the confusion, while others fired indiscriminately. The coalition's smaller ships darted into the disarray, targeting propulsion and communication systems with precision strikes based on intelligence gathered during years of resistance. Lithin's vessels projected false sensor readings, causing Varaxian ships to target each other. Marin attack crafts disabled weapon systems with targeted electromagnetic pulses. All vessels, retreat to Rally Point Epsilon. Krelvex ordered, his voice no longer carrying the absolute confidence that had defined his long career. Regroup and his transmission cut off as the Worldbreaker's remaining power core detonated, vaporizing what remained of the once mighty flagship. Without their High Admiral, and with their supposedly invincible technology proven vulnerable, the Varaxian fleet fractured. Some vessels continued fighting, but many retreated, jumping to hyperspace in disorganized groups. On the Dauntless, the aftermath of firing the Mobius-enhanced phase cannon was severe. Systems throughout the ship had overloaded, and the crystalline emitter structure had partially melted from the energy discharge. Damage report, Chen requested, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead where she'd been thrown against a console during the battle. Critical systems at 40% capacity, reported the engineering officer. The Mobius shield is offline. Propulsion severely limited. The phase cannon array is, well, it's mostly slag now. Commander. Chen nodded. And the coalition fleet. We lost 27 vessels, but the majority of the fleet is intact. The Varaxians have lost over half their ships, including all 3 dreadnoughts. The rest are in full retreat. For the first time in 60 years, a Varaxian fleet had been decisively defeated. In the days that followed, news of the victory spread rapidly through subspace communications to occupied worlds. Resistance movements that had operated in shadows for decades suddenly found themselves with popular support. Varaxian garrison forces, hearing of their supposedly invincible fleet's defeat, faced unprecedented uprisings. 2 weeks after the Battle of Proxima Nova, Commander Chen stood in the refitted war room of the Planetary Defense Headquarters, now serving as the coordination center for the growing liberation movement. Representatives from over 30 species were present, including many that had been under Varaxian control for decades. The tide has turned. Chen addressed the gathering. But our work is just beginning. The Varaxian Empire still controls vast territories, and they will adapt to our tactics. What we've gained is not victory, but opportunity. She activated a holographic display showing the known galaxy, with Varaxian-controlled systems highlighted in red, still nearly a third of the map. The Dauntless provided us the breakthrough we needed, but it was never meant to win this war alone. Its purpose was to prove the Varaxians could be defeated, and to gather the technologies and tactics needed to do so consistently. Chen gestured to the technical schematics floating alongside the galactic map. We're already constructing additional vessels, incorporating the Mobius shield technology. Our allies are adapting the phase cannon concept to their own weapon systems. What was once a single prototype has become the foundation for a united resistance. The Zakari representative raised a delicate limb. Our intelligence networks report the Varaxian ruling council has removed 3 provincial governors for failing to contain uprisings. Their empire is fracturing from within. Chen nodded, which makes this the perfect time to push our advantage. We formed strike teams composed of mixed species crews, each targeting strategic Varaxian installations. Meanwhile, diplomatic envoys are reaching out to neutral systems that previously feared Varaxian reprisal. As the meeting concluded and the representatives dispersed to their assigned tasks, Scaris, the Saurian ambassador, approached Chen privately. When your ship first defeated the Varaxian vanguard, I was skeptical, he admitted. My people have lived under their rule for 40 years. We had forgotten what hope felt like. Chen smiled. Humanity came close to surrender many times over the past decades. What kept us fighting wasn't superior technology or resources. It was simply that we refused to accept that any enemy could be truly invincible. Scaris nodded thoughtfully. The Varaxians conquered through fear as much as force. By believing they could be defeated, you made it possible. As the Saurian departed, Chen turned to the viewport overlooking the capital city of New Armstrong. Reconstruction was already underway, and ships from a dozen worlds were arriving daily, bringing supplies and volunteers for the growing coalition. The war was far from over, but for the first time, its outcome was no longer certain. A galaxy that had lived in fear for 6 decades dared to imagine freedom again, all because one ship and its determined crew had proven that even the mightiest empire could be challenged. In the shipyards orbiting Proxima Nova, the damaged Dauntless was being repaired and upgraded, its revolutionary technologies being refined based on combat experience. Soon, it would be joined by sister ships, each incorporating improvements based on the lessons of that first historic battle. The age of Varaxian dominance was ending. The age of liberation had begun.